So over the course of the weekend, we'll talk with Dave now about that Huddersfield-Man City game. So West Ham and Leicester drew 1-1 on Friday night. Palace beat Stoke. Roy Hodgson, this is his level and he's actually doing quite well at the moment. Swansea and Bournemouth, a real classic, 0-0. Liverpool and Chelsea, 1-1. A late equaliser from Chelsea in that one. Arsenal scored very late on at Burnley to put themselves back in the top four and kind of maybe give the lie to the fact that the team had no resilience. Southampton absolutely mullered Everton in the second half yesterday, 4-1 win for them. Newcastle hammered at home by Watford. Spurs and West Brom, again that Wembley issue, and maybe it's not Wembley, it's just this, the squad is too small to be able to compete in the Champions League and do this properly. And a fluky win for Manchester United against Brighton, is that fair?
Yes, more fluky than, say, Manchester City's win over Huddersfield. Both eked out late on, both desperately trying to break down the opposition, but City's came after creating chance after chance after chance. Manchester United weren't creating any chances, bar one good opportunity for Pogba in the first half.
What has impressed you so much about, okay, so obviously Man City are playing some of the best football that we've ever seen, but in particular at the game yesterday, a bit of resilience about them too.
Yes, I don't even know if resilience is the right word, and I'm going to borrow a phrase from the Dublin book, but it was just sticking to the process. They just kept playing the same way for the entire game. There was no long balls lumped forward. They resorted to a lot of diagonal balls, which I wouldn't necessarily consider as a long ball. I mean, a long ball can be a very good ball if it's thought through and it's accurate and precise, but the movement of the wingers is incredible. From Leroy Sané on the left-hand side and Raheem Sterling on the right-hand side, the amount of times that they shape to go outside, waiting for the pass, and then just jink inside and the fullback doesn't know where to go.
Yeah. So
the David Silva and De Bruyne, they didn't have their best games yesterday. They're always trying to find that little angled pass between fullback and the right or left-sided central defender. More often than not, it doesn't come off, but it only needs to come off once, because then someone like Sané's in behind, up against the byline, and then you're hoping that our guy's getting into the edge of the penalty area to put it away, as nearly happened with Fernandinho on at least 2 occasions yesterday.
When you're at the game, are De Bruyne and Silva, are they in a line? Like, what's the alignment of that?
Yeah, they're almost parallel to each other. Yeah. They're or level with each other, but they're about maybe 20 metres in from the left and the right hand side, and the ball has constantly been fed into their feet by the central defenders and the two fullbacks. They had a problem in the first half in that Kyle Walker didn't overlap once, and Pat Nevin brought it up in commentary that Raheem Sterling and Leroy Sané had clearly been told to stay widen the pitch as much as possible to try and spread the Huddersfield back four and the two sitting midfielders, and it meant that Kyle Walker, if Raheem Sterling is there, he has nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So Sterling in the second half started coming inside 10-15 metres, left acres of space for Walker to get down, and that's where the penalty came from. The equaliser just 2 minutes, I think, into the second half. In fact, it led to 2 penalty incidents within 2 minutes of each other. One not given, the second was given, and it was all down to Kyle Walker getting down on the outside.
Well, has Walker been a success so far?
Absolutely. He's maybe an unsung hero in that the plaudits are usually going to the likes of Silva, Aguero, De Bruyne, Gabriel Jesus, Raheem Sterling, who's their top scorer. But Kyle Walker, particularly since Mendy has picked up that injury on the other side of the defence, and they've kind of had to throw in a James Milner-like left full-back and Fabian Delph, Kyle Walker looks every inch of the £50 million full-back that they paid for him.
How's Delph getting on?
He was really good yesterday.
Yeah.
Bar a couple of dodgy moments in the first half where Tom Ince got the better of him, close to the Brighton or the Huddersfield penalty area. He overcommitted himself once or twice. But again, that maybe is the kind of indecision or the wrong decision made by a player who's not used to playing in that position. But he'll get better, as Milner did all through last season, and was arguably the best left full back in the Premier League last season. Doesn't want to play there now, it would appear. But I think Delph could be that. Danilo played during the week against Feyenoord. Long term, maybe he is the option when they're waiting for Mendy to come back from that cruciate. But I think they're fairly well stocked. I'm not sure if it's too early to talk about Arsenal in 2004, but at some stage we're going to have that discussion. You
think they could be?
I think it's very possible that they go through the season unbeaten.
It's these games like this where it's after a European week where there have been a bit of injuries and somebody's playing out of position that they get caught, but actually they don't look like they're going to get caught.
They don't look like they're going to concede 2 or 3 goals in a game at the moment. Now, Company had 1 or 2 issues early in the game yesterday. Depot was the Huddersfield town centre forward, and he had a brilliant game, pretty much up there on his own. They do miss John Stones. Pat Nevin said to me, who do you think, in my opinion, in Pat's opinion, is the most indispensable player in that City squad? I had to think outside the box. I said Ederson, who is arguably the best keeper in the Premier League at the moment, given the form that he's so composed with the ball at his feet, unlike Claudio Bravo. He said John Stones. He thinks that he makes that team tick. He's missing at the moment. He's going to be out for about 6 weeks. And they have Otamendi and Company at the back, who I don't fully trust. But they've gone to Wembley or to Stamford Bridge and they've won. They've hammered Arsenal, they've hammered Liverpool, They cruised through their Champions League group, and now they're digging out the results against the likes of Huddersfield Town. They have 11 men behind the ball, are going to make life really awkward for you. Look, it's a huge ask to go 38 games unbeaten, but they've won 17 in a row. Not technically, though. That run does include the penalty shootout League Cup win over Wolves, which in the UEFA record books does not constitute a win.
Okay, well, fair enough. Maybe they don't care too much about that and they can just concentrate on the league. We were talking about Lampard and Gerrard earlier on. Jeez, it sounds like great crack to have played for England, says Kevin Kilban last night watching that thing. Maybe that's part of the issue. Like the toxicity from the press and the fans has to, at some point, feed into the players who are like constantly being told by the press, why are you so shit? Why have we been so shit for so long?
Against Iceland in particular in the second half of that knockout game in the European Championships last season, they just were paralysed by fear. And Gerrard said yesterday, he recalls, as the teams break up, the club teams break up for the international window and everyone's going their separate ways. The Brazilian lads couldn't wait to get out of there. Couldn't wait to meet up with their teammates. Couldn't wait to share the stories because they're all coming from very different parts of the world. Every other international team, bar England, their international players are spread out across a whole number of leagues. Doesn't happen with England. They're all up against each other, kicking lumps out of each other every week.
Now maybe there's so few of the English players actually key players for the teams who are going to be winning and competing for the championship that there's a potential for them to kind of see this as an escape.
I think that's a good point, and it's one that they brought up yesterday as well, that Gareth Southgate is trying to bring about a real bond, more of a club feel to the place, and that will help that they're not all in the Champions League teams, they're not all chasing the Premier League title, and all these the limelight and all the scrutiny that goes with being an Arsenal or Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester United or City player. I mean, if you're playing very well for West Brom, for example, you might be far more likely to get on with your England teammates.
Let's talk a bit about Dortmund. Dave spent the whole of Saturday night watching German football.
It was a throwback to the old days, Ger.
Yeah, so 4-0 down, 4-0 up, and then finished 4-all. What happened in this game?
They were 4-0 up and then it finished 4-all. They just imploded in the last half an hour. It was incredible to watch. I watched them on Tuesday night when they were beaten by Tottenham. Despite going in front, there is a growing level of trepidation as the game ticks on. So
Dortmund have a picture of their halftime cup of tea, and I can't see what they're drinking. Is it booze? Are the Schalke suggesting that they're boozing to celebrate a 4-all draw, or is it like mulled wine?
Well, it is a huge derby game.
Hot cider.
If there's a little bit of alcohol in that drink that Schalke are enjoying, well, fair play to them. It was incredible scenes at the end when they got the fourth goal. It was 7 minutes of injury time. When the board went up, you knew Dortmund were screwed. That the goal was going to come eventually. Missing their first choice goalkeeper, so Weidenfeller, who's now 35, I think, although did make a couple of really good saves, he was at fault for a couple of the goals as well. And on a weekend where Bayern went down to Borussia Mönchengladbach, it was a great opportunity for Dortmund to go back into the title race because they could have found themselves just 6 back. But it's still 8.
They're just not good enough anymore, are they?
No, well, look, they're being pulverised every transfer window. Whoever their best player is gone. They lost Goetze to an injury at the weekend, although I'm not sure how much of a loss that is because he is a shadow of the player he once was in comparison to the guy that was targeted by Bayern. He looks like a player who's lived a good life.
He's had a good life. He's going to be happy enough.
He does not look like to me that he's a professional footballer.
To La Liga and the situation with Barcelona, a 1-all draw against Valencia at the weekend. A beautiful assist from Leo Messi, but it looks like they should really have had a goal as well. This is Lineker. Mad they don't have goal line technology in La Liga. I think they'll be revisiting the debate after Messi's goal was ruled not to have crossed the line when it clearly did. Look at that.
Isn't it so like Lampard in the 2010 World Cup, or 2010, against Germany and South Africa? It's just so clear. So
it's worse, isn't it? Well, Lampard's was just over that.
Oh no, that was Lampard's was
it much further?
We commentated on off the ball at the time. Almost a yard, I would have thought. Although I might be exaggerating given the 7 years that have elapsed in the meantime. But you'd wonder, as Lineker says, why is goal line technology, given how successful it has been in the other leagues, how is it not in La Liga at the moment? I don't think it's going to cost Barcelona in the long run. They're still well set at the top of the table, and drawing at the Mestalla against your closest pursuers wasn't the worst thing in the world. No, it's good to have Valencia back. It's good to have a few more teams to talk about when it comes to La Liga as well. Right, let's move on and talk about our Saturday panel at the weekend. Nathan, hosting on Saturday, was talking to a bunch of different people from the League of Ireland. Stewie Byrne was there, Shane Keegan, and Bohs commercial director Daniel Lambert was also there. They were talking specifically about the structure of the league and what needs to be done to help improve it.
I think it's not in as bad a state as Stewie paints there. I think there's one thing that was mentioned there. He's right in terms of people do they go to games in the UK predominantly. I think a lot of that is down to the marketing. Marketing the Premier League is a model and a beast that you're not going to tackle. And I think the mistake is being made. I think too often, and the FAI can do more and should do more, but too often the blame is placed for me at the hands of the FAI. The FAI should do this or they should do that. And as I said, there are things they should do, but the clubs have to look at themselves. I think we've, over the last few years, totally changed our approach in terms of trying to get people to games, what we offer at games, what the club is about as a club rather than as a team that play in the Electricity League. And I think that, you know, when young people come to a game, there's no point in trying to tackle the Premier League head on, because you just won't offer the kind of the glamour, the non-stop coverage that they offer. But there are things that the clubs can focus in on and begin to get people involved. And I think the biggest mistake the clubs have made is that they've isolated themselves. They've basically been about one team. They've neglected underage systems, predominantly women's teams. They've neglected being about a broader club rather than just about a team. And they haven't made themselves relevant to the areas that they're in. And that's what the GAA and rugby do. They make themselves relevant. So if you look at essentially Bohemians, and it's more and more clubs, thankfully, in League of Ireland now are moving to members-owned models. But we're essentially a GAA club in structure that play soccer. We're subcommittees and committees, and we're all volunteers, so nobody earns a salary. And I was on the board of Bohemians for 10 years. I never earned a penny. It cost me money to do, and that's very similar to people I know that are in the GAA. And if you look at a local GAA club hosts an event, everyone there is a volunteer. They're not paying people, and I think that's the mistake that a lot of clubs tried to professionalise in a way that was superficial. It was top heavy, and I think
you're a community, whereas a lot of clubs are almost turning their back on the community.
Absolutely, yeah. Like we maybe talk about it later, but we had a strategic plan before the FAI, before it kind of went public last year, and the kind of debacle about the strategic plans. But we put in that strategic plan, number 1 and 2 were interchangeable, and they were community and football. And they truly are interchangeable. Our work in the community is as important as our team on the pitch. And it's something I think that's worth mentioning. For the first time this season, ourselves in Cork got EU funding from the EU Regional Development Fund for our work in the communities. It's quite substantial funding over an 18-month period.
How much?
Well, it's basically what it does. It employs 2 full-time and 1 part-time person per club to work solely on community activities. And the thing about community work is that it's too often, again, in League of Ireland, it's linked to marketing. So the idea has been that you do work in the community to get people to come to your games, but people see right through that. You should do work in the community to do good in your community, and over time then that trickles back and people get involved in the running of the club, in volunteering, whether it's at your academy, your underage structures, and coming to games. And I think that's a key change that needs to happen, and it can be driven by the clubs themselves.
Yeah, great stuff coming from the Saturday panel discussion there. You can get it on iTunes or wherever you get podcasts, offtheball.com to subscribe as well.